The morning sun cast a warm glow over the trail as Mark and his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, embarked on their hiking adventure together. Mark, a seasoned hiker, had hiked this trail several times before, but this was his first time bringing his daughter with him on this hike. The weather report that morning had forecasted rain late that afternoon, and Mark hoped that they would be done with the hike, or at least well on their way back down the trail by then. Lily was dressed in a very short sundress that reflected her adventurous and carefree spirit. Although she could also be reckless, impulsive, and even a bit rebellious at times, and for that reason Mark had cautioned her to stay close to him during this hike and follow his instructions. In fact, he was having to give her repeated reminders several times throughout the hike due to both her impulsive nature and the fact that the trail was a bit tricky and dangerous at times. Lily found her father's constant reminders and warnings a bit annoying and frustrating, but she listened and obeyed nonetheless. And despite this, she still enjoyed the hike and the scenery, and she bonded with her father as they continued to ascend the trail. They eventually reached a rocky area where the trail diverged, splitting into 2 rocky passageways that went around a small rocky ridge and merged together again on the other side. A week ago on a solo hike, Mark had taken the right-hand passageway, but he had encountered an unsettling putrid odor emanating from a small cave entrance along the way, and he couldn't help but sense that something was awry. So this time, remembering that experience, he decided to take the left-hand passage instead. This was a shame, because the right-hand passage was the more inviting of the two, since it was an easier hike and also more scenic. Even Lily could sense the allure of the right-hand trail, and her father's decision disappointed her. But nonetheless, she followed her father's lead and they traversed the left-hand passage together, the rocky surroundings echoing with the crunch of gravel under their hiking boots. Despite her growing disappointment and frustration, Lily couldn't deny the thrill of the rocky adventure. They reached the point where the passageways merged again and continued hiking up the trail. Finally, they reached their destination, a serene spot with beautiful trees and a crystal-clear lake. Mark and Lily sat down together and enjoyed a well-deserved break and lunch. Lily started practically wolfing down her lunch, but her father told her to slow down and eat like a civilized person and not like an animal. She did as he said, despite her frustration. After Lily finished her lunch, she stood up, and then, unable to resist the allure of the nearby water, she shed all of her clothes and plunged into the cool water, and started swimming and playing. Mark warned her not to venture too far out into the water. Disappointed but obedient, she complied, still relishing in the cool water on a warm day. Mark smiled and his heart warmed as he watched his daughter frolic in the water with her boundless energy. Unfortunately, however, the approaching rain clouds were now very close. They were here much earlier than the weather report had forecasted, and it would be raining very soon, so Mark knew it was time for them to start heading back down. As he started packing up, he called out to Lily, telling her to get out of the water and get dressed. Lily was frustrated and angry, but she reluctantly climbed out of the water and put her clothes back on. The disappointment etched on her face mirrored the frustration and discontent building within. Once she was dressed, she and Mark donned their raincoats, which Mark had wisely packed, and the two of them started descending back down the trail. As they descended the trail, the rain began to fall, mirroring Lily's discontent. As the rain persisted, Lily's frustration with her father simmered and reached a boiling point. Her father's continuous reminders, warnings, and restrictions on her adventurous spirit had gradually made her more and more frustrated throughout the hike. And now her frustration was further compounded by their premature departure. The rain intensified, mirroring Lily's escalating anger. Unable to hold back anymore, she started arguing heatedly with her father. Then, in a moment of rebellion, unable to contain her anger, Lily impulsively ran ahead on the trail, leaving her father behind. Fearing for his daughter's safety, Mark ran after her. Just up ahead was the fork in the trail at the rocky area, and Mark quickened his pace. To his horror, he saw Lily disappear into the undesirable passage, the very one they had avoided earlier. Fear propelled him forward, and he sprinted to the entrance to the passage and entered it. He raced through the passage, passing the ominous cave entrance, which was still emanating that unsettling foul smell. He continued running through the passage and finally emerged on the other side, where the paths reconverged. But there was no sign of his daughter there, and panic set in. Heart pounding, he started swiftly retracing his steps down the passage, but just then his daughter's frantic screams echoed through the rocky corridor. He rounded the next bend and saw Lily running towards him, a terrified expression on her face. When she reached him, she told him frantically that a disheveled and sinister-looking woman had come out of the foul-smelling cave and grabbed her, and pulled her into the cave, promising a shortcut to avoid the rain. Between the woman's unsettling presence and the foul smell that got worse and worse the deeper they went into the cave, Lily had gotten so scared that she broke free and ran back out of the cave again and back to her father. Mark, his protective instincts flaring, was both terrified and furious. Together, he and Lily sprinted along the rocky passageway. As they ran, Mark thought he heard the sound of running footsteps from a distance behind them, following them. But he resisted the urge to look back. He and Lily finally exited the passage and continued running down the trail. At this point, Mark glanced over his shoulder, and he saw a figure at the entrance to the passageway but couldn't discern any details. He and Lily continued running, fueled by fear, all the way back down the trail. They finally reached the trailhead and the parking lot, and they quickly got into their car, hearts pounding with a mix of relief and fear. Mark immediately started up the car and started driving. The drive home was tense, the gravity of what had just transpired sinking in. Once they arrived home, Mark wasted no time and called the police. In the days that followed, news broke that the police had investigated the rocky area and discovered a woman hiding deep inside the cave. She was a serial killer, and she had hidden some of her victims' bodies deep within the cave. The revelation sent shivers down Mark and Lily's spines, as they realized how narrowly they had escaped a potentially tragic fate. The police's swift action had prevented further harm, and the eerie encounter on the hiking trail would forever be etched in their memories. Grateful for Lily's safety, Mark hugged her tightly, realizing that their seemingly ordinary hike had turned into a life-altering experience.